Thank you for tuning in to TalkWad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com.
It's Talking Sports with CJ and Fonz on SportsSlamRadio.com. It's sports hardcore and fully uncensored. Good evening, boys and girls, and welcome to Talking Sports with CJ on this March 6th night. We're on SportsSlamRadio.com. Be an awesome show tonight. We have Kurt Smith coming on. He'll be talking about ballparks, MLB ballparks that he covers and talks about concessions, which ones are fan-friendly, which ones are the cheapest to go to or to attend, if you have a whole family, if you want to attend a game. So he'll be coming on 7:32. 8:05, we have Vince Ferrara coming on, who's been on the show before. We talked college football with Vince last time. He works in Knoxville, Tennessee, sports radio host, and he's also the pregame college football host for the Tennessee Volunteers and their halftime analyst for the basketball Tennessee Volunteers. So we're going to do a March Madness college basketball interview, which we haven't done yet on this show, so that's going to be fun. First thing I want to get into, and I posted on my Facebook, my Twitter earlier, there's two streaks that are going on in sports right now, two impressive streaks. In the NBA, you have the Miami Heat, who have won 15 in a row. In the NHL side, you have the Chicago Blackhawks, who have won, let's put it this way, they've gone 23 games without a loss in regulation. They're 20-0-3. They have lost in shootouts, but not in regulation. And this streak actually carries into from last season, from last March, where it's actually 29 games. The NHL record is 35 games to go out without a loss in regulation. I believe it was the Philadelphia Flyers. I think it was the 78 Flyers. I'm off the top of my head, but it was the Flyers that has the original 35-game record. The Hawks are in action tonight at 8 o'clock. They're playing the Colorado Avalanche. They'll be going for 24 games tonight. But the Miami Heat on the NBA side, they've looked impressive. They're just beating teams down. They've beat down Oklahoma City. They've beat down the Bulls. They've beat down the Knicks. I mean, even when LeBron's struggling, they beat Memphis on last Friday night. So, but which streak is better? And I asked some of my viewers on Facebook, Twitter. I've had some responses, and so far, counting the responses, more say the Blackhawks as of right now. But, going into the two streaks, you look at the Heat first. Number one, it's 15 games, but that's not even the longest streak in the NBA this season. People forget the LA Clippers won 17 in a row early on. So if you want to talk streaks, I mean, they're number one. And in NHL, people say dispute the the Blackhawks streak because, I mean, they've lost in shootouts. Even though it counts as a non-regulation loss, it's still a loss in a shootout. So should the streak continue? But that's NHL rules. You can't do anything about that. So, I mean, whatever people say, some people say the Heat, but then you look at it and on two sides. Number one with the Hawks, the NHL season. Number one, it's an abbreviated season. You're talking about a 48-game NHL schedule, which was supposed to be 82 games. So common sense, they're going to be playing games now, possibly 3 games in 4 nights, sometimes 4 games in 6 nights. And NHL is very fast-paced. It's more physical than the NBA. So people say the Blackhawks. I'm going to say neither. I'm going to say, number one, the Heat don't have the longest streak in the NBA this season. And the Hawks, even though they haven't lost in regulation, they have 3 losses. They lost in a shootout, which should count as a loss. As much as you want to dispute that, it should count as a loss. I'm going to say the Clippers, 17 in a row. The Heat tie that, and then maybe I'll say the Heat, but the Clippers won 17 in a row, so I'm going to fool everybody and take the third door, so to say, the Ron Paul of the 3. On the other hand, though, with the Hawks, they're clicking on all cylinders. Goaltending, the penalty kill, offensively, defensively, just clicking on all cylinders. And Sunday, it really looked like the streak was going to end. Down 1-0, 2 minutes left to go in regulation, and Patrick Kane comes through, scores a tying goal, and then they win in a shootout over Detroit. They're heated rivals. The Heat, on the other hand, LeBron, was off, like I said, on Friday night. The streak could have ended that night, but they still had enough to beat Memphis, and the Heat are just looking like they're better than last season. I can't see anybody beating the Heat. It was funny, I was out last week, and somebody actually said, and I don't know if they were kidding, they were from Indiana, they said the Pacers would have a chance against the Heat in a 7-game series. And, you got a better chance it's snowing in hell than the Heat losing to the Pacers in a 7-game series. It's not going to happen. There's no way. I don't care if LeBron goes down. There's no way the Pacers are beating the Heat. So get off that bandwagon. I mean, it's ridiculous. No one's beating the Heat in the East. But we'll get more into that maybe later on in the show. But right now we're going to get Curt Smith on the phone, who, like I said, writes about baseball ballparks. He's the writer for E-Guides, Ballpark E-Guides, which he writes about all these ballparks. And it's good to get into baseball talk right now because we're in March. Baseball is starting. We got spring training going on. I was at a game Saturday, Blue Jays Phillies, which was really awesome. So spring training baseball, but, talk about ballparks.
Hello.
Hello, Curt. It's CJ from Talking Sports with CJ in Tampa Bay. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great, CJ.
I just saw, you were calling my cell phone. I was like, we'll call him in a minute. We're just finishing up on the intro before we called you. So.
Yeah, I know. I think I thought I was supposed to call for some reason.
Oh, no, that's okay. So how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. How's life in New Jersey?
Well, it was pretty windy today, but we just got a little rain where I'm at. Nothing spectacular. No reason to clear off the shelves at the supermarket like people always do,
No, we were supposed to have a cold front today, but that was a cold front in Tampa Bay, 62 degrees. That's what they call a cold front here in Tampa Bay. So
yeah, I long for that type of cold front.
Yeah,
man. It's been like 30 degrees for the last 2 months.
Oh my God, yeah. People, when it's like sometimes it will get down to 40 every now and then here, like in the winter, and you get people dressed like they're in Russia or something, like wearing like coat, like winter like ski coats, and
Yeah, totally not ready for it. Yeah.
But I'm glad you came on the show. I talked about you before you came on. You're the owner and author of Ballpark E-Guides.
That's correct. Yes.
First of all, I want to ask you, talking to my viewers about this. What exactly is the ballparks? What are the Ballpark E-Guides, and what made you decide to do something like this?
Well, a Ballpark E-Guide basically is just to help you get the most bang for your buck at the ballpark. Because years ago, I used to go to Camden Yards a lot. I don't get to go as much as I used to, but I had favorite places to park, and I had, little secrets after going there a few times about where to get peanuts and get a hot dog outside, and just to save money on things like programs and things like that. And I thought it'd be cool to write a book about, all the ballparks with any kind of secrets I could find. And so I started researching Citizens Bank Park in Philly, which is kind of my hometown. And I had so many kick myself in the head moments, like, wow, I never knew about this, that, and the other thing. And I'd been going to games in Philadelphia since I was a kid. So, I decided it would take too long to write a book, so I just wrote little mini guides for each ballpark.
Yeah, and I'm very interested in these ballparks because I'm a big fan of ballparks. I haven't been to a whole lot, but I've been to Yankee Stadium, Fenway. I've been to, of course, Tropicana Field, which we're going to get into in a second. And I'm really interested because, I'll say I'm not going to eat at a ballpark, but I always want to, anytime I go, I could go there full. And if you smell the food, you want to buy food there, of course. And I always look for the best rates because, as you know, going to a ballpark, I don't care if it's baseball, football, basketball, hockey, it's going to be overpriced food.
Right. Well, one of the things I go into a little detail about what kind of food a place offers and what you can expect. And, whenever I can, I'll try and tell you how to save a few dollars on that. Most ballparks today, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but most ballparks today will allow you to bring stuff in.
Well, yep.
Certainly you can bring in your own peanuts and water. I mean, why pay for that at the ballpark?
I agree.
You get killed on that stuff. And there's usually, like Yankee Stadium especially, has a lot of places outside where you can you can grab a sandwich at a deli and put that in your bag and not spend $15 for a steak sandwich inside the ballpark. But a lot of them have like the nice options too. I mean, you can spend a few bucks at the game and get a special burger or a Cuban sandwich at Tropicana Field. The cheesesteaks in Philly. You like to sample a little bit of the local type of thing. So it's all good. If you want to save money, you can, but sometimes you can splurge a little bit too.
And a funny story. I went to Fenway back about 5 years ago when I was heavier. I was never really fat, but I was heavier, I want to say. And I was at Fenway Park. I went there hungry, which was like probably the worst thing I ever did. I ended up dropping like $70 just on food. I mean,
I felt conceivable, yeah.
Yeah, I could believe because you have the the sausage and pepper sandwich stand, Yorkie Way, and then you have the Louis Tiant stand where for Cuban sandwiches. And by the time I know, I was $70 in the hole.
Yeah, and then you're getting popcorn or peanuts or something like that, and heaven help you if you want to drink a beer or two.
Right, exactly.
Beer at every ballpark is $8 or $9 these days.
Jeez, and by the time you drop $100.
Especially after you've had one or two.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you now, living here in Tampa Bay, as you know, Tropicana Field always gets a bad rap. We've seen ESPN call it a dump. We've seen Bud Selig rip it apart, saying that Tampa Bay needs a new stadium. It has to happen for this team to survive in this area, in the Tampa Bay area. They need a new stadium. Do you think the Tropicana Field should it get a bad rap the way it does? And how does it compare to other ballparks you've visited?
Well, compared to a place like Camden Yards, and in fairness, Tropicana Field was built before Camden Yards. So compared to a place like that or PNC Park in Pittsburgh, it suffers a little bit because it's indoors. It's a dome. It's got artificial turf.
Mm-hmm.
It was built before the big ballpark boom, where you have all these nice ballparks appearing all over the landscape. So it kind of suffers. I think that's part of the reason it gets a bad rap. I don't think it's entirely deserved. There's a lot of good things about Tropicana Field. Now I can tell you, living in the Northeast, you're not getting into Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium or Citizens Bank Park in Philly for $9.
No,
that's not happening. And you're certainly not going to park for free. At Tropicana Field, you can bring a few extra people in your car and park in the lot for free.
Right.
And it's kind of nice to go to a place that's air conditioned. And I've never been there in August, but I can only imagine what it's like in Florida then. To go into a place that's air conditioned is pretty nice, especially for the bargain you get for doing it. And the best part of all of that is that the Tampa Bay Rays are a pretty good team.
Right.
I mean, this has been a competitive team for the last few years. They scratched their way into the playoffs in 2011, which is one of the most exciting games ever. Should they get a new ballpark? There's a lot of complaints that it's very difficult to get there from Tampa.
Yep.
So who knows? Maybe the location is part of the problem. And Bud Selig, he does these things. And I don't mean to be critical of the guy, but he does play that whole political angle of the whole thing.
He does.
So
we see him do it with Minnesota
I
too.
don't think the rap. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He did it with Minnesota too, with the Twins.
Absolutely.
He ripped. I mean, to the point that they got a new ballpark.
Yeah, and that's how. And it's a good part of the reason the Expos ended up in Washington, actually.
Right. Yep.
Right.
You must have something against domes. I guess they are 80-ish. They're 70 to 80-ish, and not. I mean, Tropicana Field is one of the last domes. You got that, and you have the Blue Jays. What's it called? The Rogers Center. That's still a dome.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, Tropicana Field is the last non-retractable dome.
Non-retractable dome. Yeah.
So yeah, they can't remove the roof if they want to. But the rap isn't entirely deserved. I think it can be a good place to see a ball game, and it's certainly in the middle of summer, and to be able to bring a few people, it's certainly a better deal with the kids than, say, Disney World or something like that.
And like you said, I've been here 11 years and attending Rays games in August, and the humidity here feels like about 110 here in August. You don't want to be sitting on a 1:40 afternoon baseball game on a Sunday in that heat.
Right.
I mean, that's what.
Yeah, that's something that gets overlooked a lot, and I say that to people when they're talking. They ask me about Tropicana Field, and a couple of people have said to me, "Oh, I hate it. It's a dump." And I'm like, "Hey, you haven't been there in August. That's something you got to take into consideration."
Well, I want to mention, I'm a big Chicago Cubs fan, and we all know Wrigley Field, along with Fenway, the two most historic baseball stadiums, the two of the last of the oldest stadiums, ever since Tiger Stadium and the Yankee Stadium have been replaced.
Right.
How do you compare the newer ballparks to these historic ballparks?
Well, I can tell you that Wrigley and Fenway, it's kind of a good thing. It's a nice thing that they were both saved because they were the two classics. I mean, Tiger Stadium was right there with it. Tiger Stadium was as old as Fenway, but at the time that they built Comerica Park in Detroit, they were talking about replacing Fenway, and there were plans in the works, and they were looking for funding and everything like that. So, a movement started to save Fenway Park, and I think because of that, people decided that Wrigley should be saved too.
Yep.
And I can tell you, there's still I don't know if you've been to Wrigley Field, but there's nothing like a game at Wrigley or Fenway.
Yeah,
there's just nothing like it. I mean, leaving aside that, both places are just like time machines.
Right.
You feel all the history that have happened in both places. But also, I think with both those ballparks more than any other, there's just a neighborhood. I mean, just like a whole neighborhood. Like with Wrigley, you got people sitting on the rooftops. You've got bars on every corner. The whole area gets into it on game day, and it's just an incredible thing, especially for a team that had really not been competitive in the last, I don't know how many years, I guess about 6 or 7 years. And you still got a whole neighborhood getting into this game. And it's the same thing with the Red Sox. Maybe not as much at Fenway, but I think that's the kind of thing that you can't just plan a new ballpark and build that.
No.
You can't build that kind of ambiance it's hard to describe. You just have to kind of experience it for yourself. It's not just the game, it's just the whole neighborhood just coming together and just celebrating baseball. And I think that's the coolest thing about Wrigley.
And it's like a tourist attraction. People come from all over the country, sometimes from other countries, just to come to Wrigley to see it, to say they've been there.
Sure, yeah, and Fenway the same way.
Right.
It's the same thing with Fenway Park. And, I really, really love Camden Yards. I'd say if I had to pick a favorite, they would probably be Camden Yards. And that has that same kind of, it has a little bit of that atmosphere, but it's not quite the same. I mean, it's really, and maybe it's because you don't have obstructed views or you don't have really small seats or something like that. It's really, to have those ballparks be around forever is just, it builds up the whole neighborhood.
Now, we were talking about Yankee Stadium, the old one. In July of 2010, I attended the new stadium, and I was pretty impressed. I'm glad it kind of resembles the old one. It's just a newer version of the old stadium. And I mean, it's cleaner, of course, and brand new stadium. They put a lot of money. The area is not too good that they put it in, but the stadium itself is beautiful. How would you compare the new stadium to the old stadium?
Well, the old stadium had that kind of museum feel. Certainly, similar to Fenway or to Wrigley. I don't know that it was the best place to watch a ball game. I mean, you could say the same thing about Memorial Stadium in Baltimore.
Yep.
The fans really loved it, and there was a lot of history there and everything like that. That said, I think the new Yankee Stadium is fantastic. I think they did everything that they needed to do when they built it. They paid tribute to the history. They really beat you over the head with the Yankees history there.
Yeah.
You got the Great Hall and all these pictures and the Yankees Museum and the Monument Park. The old stadium was good because it had a lot more of a blue collar feel to it. And I was just reading reviews of the new one today, and I was just, every other person talks about how overpriced everything is and how, it's ridiculous how much they're charging and how it's an upper middle class ballpark anymore. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think when the old stadium, with cheaper tickets, you had a lot of it was a really intimidating place. I don't know if you heard some of the Tigers players talking last year in the ALCS. They were saying how Yankee Stadium's become a very easy place to play.
Oh, yeah, it's empty all the time.
I don't think a lot of Yankees fans would be happy to hear that.
No. But you notice A-Rod always manages to find female fans, though, to try to give his number to, even if there's not as many people in the stands.
Hands them out baseballs to write their phone numbers on, yeah.
Right. But no, I agree. It doesn't have that feel like you see games during the regular season. You see seats behind home plate that are, seats are empty, and people rip the Rays for being empty, but the Yankees, we're talking about New York City, a larger market, and
they're getting upwards of those seats behind home plate are upwards of $2,000. I mean, and anybody that can afford that, they're probably not going to go out there in the cold in October.
No. The best way to get a seat for Yankee Stadium, the new one, is show up in the second inning, find a scalper outside the stadium. I paid $40, and I was in a luxury suite. Because I went the second inning. It was a Saturday afternoon game, one of the Fox Saturday games. And as a matter of fact, they were playing the Rays of all teams when I was there. So
that's great.
Yeah,
I'm going to go there. I'm going to try and go there in April, so I'll definitely try that.
Wait till the second inning, just kind of watch the first inning somewhere else, maybe a place nearby, and show up in the second inning, and you'll get, I'm telling you, because scalpers get desperate. They'd have to get rid of tickets, so, I mean, that's the best way to go.
They definitely don't want to eat it.
No, so that's the way I did it. I want to ask
the seats are really comfortable in that.
Oh, that's one thing I agree with too. And the food was okay. I ate there, and a little pricey and all, but I thought I liked it, but I missed the old stadium. I've been to the old Yankee Stadium many times, and like you said, it felt like a home field advantage for the Yankees, especially in the playoffs.
Absolutely. It was like having a 10th player on the field.
Yeah, now it's not the same, and I agree with that. I want to mention now you've covered these stadiums. Which stadium would you rate number one for fan-friendly?
Well, it depends on what you're into. I think if you want to talk about value friendly, certainly if you want to take a family to the game, Tropicana Field's near the top of that. Also, Milwaukee, I found.
Wow, really?
A lot
That's
of great deals for people, and you can get in there for $1. You can get in there really cheap for the left field seats. There's lots of party areas, and the tailgating scene is just, it's like nothing else in baseball. It's like a football game when you go there for the tailgating. I would say fan-friendly, Camden Yards and PNC Park.
Mm-hmm.
PNC Park in Pittsburgh is very, it's very intimate. There's only like a 38,000 capacity. Tickets are very cheap because the Pirates still haven't had a winning season yet.
No, they've come close the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've been, for the first half of the season, they've been competitive,
Yep.
but I think what happens is other teams figure them out.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they do with Russell Martin as catcher this year. But, yeah, PNC Park, and that's a beautiful ballpark. You know, and I would like to see the Pirates become a better team. Camden Yards in Baltimore, certainly. It's another place where there's not too many bad seats in the joint.
I have to see a game there. I still haven't seen a game at Camden. I've heard so much about it. I definitely have to attend a game at Camden Yards one day down the line.
Yeah, I would, like I said, I would rank that one as my favorite, partly because, you know, I was an Orioles fan most of my life, but it's just, and they've remodeled it a little bit, and they've put a party area in center field, and they've, you know, added drink rails and stuff like that, and it just, and they put Orioles flags and pennants and pictures, and they have typical Baltimore food everywhere now. Yeah, the Natty Boh beer and Pollock Johnny sausages and all that stuff, and it's really, it's like a local taste of Baltimore, and it's really awesome. Fantastic.
They still got the barbecue. Was it the ex-ball player?
Yeah.
Powell?
Yeah, Boots Barbecue.
Yep, yeah. I heard that's a good stand.
Yeah. Everybody loves that. That's like the go-to food item there. Oh wow. Yeah, absolutely. You can see during the game. You can see the smoke coming from the tent. If it's a well-attended game and there's still lines for Boogs, you'll see smoke wafting out from the tent, which is pretty cool. That's where I would be attending. Yeah. That's where most of my money would go. I would say definitely put that one on your list. That one's a great one.
Yeah, I got to attend a game there. And I want to ask you real quick, you've covered these ballparks. What are your 5 favorite ballparks and your 5 least favorite?
Well, of the ones I've been to, I haven't been to AT&T Park yet in San Francisco, and everybody raves about that place. I haven't been to Coors in Denver yet.
Right.
But of the ones I've been to, I have Camden Yards on the top. Then I would say Fenway and Wrigley would be tied. I don't want to pick a winner between the two.
Right.
PNC Park in Pittsburgh, and I think Comerica in Detroit. I think that looks like a nice ballpark. Comerica is underrated, and I think the reason is because I think a lot of people really hated to see Tiger Stadium go.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just, you know, were very upset about that. So they couldn't bring themselves to hate Comerica Park, but they didn't love that it was built. But, you know, that's a fantastic place to see a game. It really is. My least favorites, and unfortunately, I would say I'd have to put Tropicana Field on my least.
No, that's understandable.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I still love going to games. You know, it doesn't matter to me. U.S. Cellular Field in Chicago is not.
That's a dump, I heard.
There's not a lot of character there. I can tell you of the ones that I've been to. My least favorite of the new ones is Great American in Cincinnati.
Wow.
And I don't know, I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I think it was because I felt like there was too much concrete. You know what I mean? You walk around and there's just concrete everywhere. And you know, I'm a red bricks guy. I like the or you know, bricks and steel. I like that stuff. Geez, another least favorite one. I don't want to say that I really hate any of these places.
Right.
You know what? I think Citi Field in New York could be a little more fan friendly. I like the place. Certainly, it's great. But there's a lot of things they could have done better with that place. There's terrible obstructed views in the upper deck. Just really bad. If you get a seat that's right behind one of these glass landings, you're not even going to see any parts of the infield. It's that bad.
Wow.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that they could have improved.
Oh,
I mean,
of course,
I don't hate
all the
the
money
place, but and for a team as bad as the Mets have been, they really ought to be charging less for tickets.
Oh yeah.
That is not a cheap place to go see a game.
Wow.
And geez, how many did I come up with there,
That's
CJ?
4.
Was that 4?
We need one more.
All right, so let me think. I'll tell you what. I guess I got to put Nationals Park on that list.
Wow.
Not because I dislike it. It's not a bad ballpark, but that's another place where very, very expensive to sit in the lower level. But if you get into the upper level, they have luxury suites on the mezzanine, and they've also pushed the upper level seats up because they have the open concourses where you can see the game from the concourse areas. And now because of that, the upper seats are way up there. And I always tell people, if you're going to Nationals Park, don't get those cheap seats because you're going to be so high up there.
Binoculars.
Yeah, you're going to waving the pilots up there. But like I said, these places aren't terrible. They're not bad places to see games. But I guess if I would have to rank them lower on the list, those would be the 5.
We're on the phone with Curt Smith. It was great having you on the show. I mean, I love talking about stadiums, any kind of stadium. I'm a big fan of talking about stadiums. And my goal one day is to go to every ballpark in baseball. That's my goal. If I can ever do it, that's on my bucket list. I know it's a little young for a bucket list.
I'm here to help people do that, CJ.
Yeah, I know people do that. Yep.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to do this job. It really is.
Oh, I can imagine. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it does get, there's a lot of research. I try to give people their money's worth, so that, I put a lot of research into it. But when I get out there and I'm taking pictures of the ballpark, that's as happy as I can be.
Now, do you have a website you want to plug before we let you go?
Yeah, the website is www.ballparkeguides.com. It's all one word with no dashes, and you can sign up for the newsletter that I send out every 2 weeks or so. And you can look around. I have a lot of information about the ballparks there, and you can look around. And the Ballpark e-Guides themselves are $4.99, and hopefully they'll save you a few bucks the next time you go to the game.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Curt, for coming on the show, and I'm definitely going to check out Camden Yards.
My pleasure, CJ. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night. Well, that was Curt Smith. Excellent interview, talking baseball ballparks. Camden Yards is definitely on the top of my list. I have to attend a game there, and I definitely want to attend that PNC Park. I know Pittsburgh, good baseball city. Be better if the Pirates are good, but, I'm really a fan of hoping the Pirates are good, and I want to definitely see PNC Park. We're going to be getting Vince Ferrara on the show at 8:05. I want to get into some headlines before we do that. And the first thing I want to talk about is Joe Flacco's contract. Is he worth the money? $126 million over 6 years, $52 million guaranteed. Is any player worth that much money? Flacco's great. I would say he's great. He's an above-average quarterback. He did win a Super Bowl. And the big stat that helped him this season get that contract was going through all the playoff games with no interceptions and 11 touchdown passes. Only one man has done that, and that's Joe Montana. So that's a very, very critical stat. That shows Flacco can play under pressure. But is he worth that much? He's not in Tom Brady's class. He's not in Peyton Manning's class. And he's not in Drew Brees' class. So, hello, you're on the phone with Talking Sports with CJ tonight. How can we help you?
Hey, this is Guido from Indian Rocks Beach, Florida again.
Guido. Sarducci. How's it going? What's going on tonight? How can we help you, Guido?
Sarducci's doing good, man. Joe Flacco, don't even get him started on this loser,
boy, he broke the bank, huh?
He is a joke.
How did he get, $52 million guaranteed? Come on.
Dude, hey, if he's getting that, then Aaron Rodgers shouldn't even report to camp. The Packers should be calling Aaron Rodgers right now to restructure his contract, because Aaron Rodgers just paid less than Carson Palmer and Joe Flacco. Are you kidding me?
I want to ask you, Guido, the viewer's topic. What streak is more impressive, the Heat or the Blackhawks?
Oh, yeah. Let me get you going on this one. The Blackhawks, they don't even deserve to be an NHL team in my eyes. They suck.
Oh, you're crazy.
But, nah, they're a good team. They're a good team. But more impressive, I'm telling you, man. I'm watching the Heat right now.
Yep.
They are looking off the charts.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to smoke the Magic by 30 points tonight, man.
Well, somebody said the Pacers can beat them in a 7-game.
They might not even lose another game all year.
Someone said the Pacers could beat them in a 7-game series. That's hilarious.
God, yeah. Pacers. Indiana. Have they even made an NBA Finals?
It's been since, I want to say 2000, but they got rolled.
Reggie Miller days, yeah but let's get a life, man.
Yeah, unless Reggie Miller's planning on putting on the Pacer uniform, they are not making the finals.
Honestly, no team is contending with the Heat in the East. In the West, honestly, I don't see any team in the West that could beat them either. But I tell you what, it's going to be a good story. I think the Lakers are going to sneak into that 8th slot, CJ, and they're going to take out the 1 seed. Then they're going to take out the 4 seed, and then they're into the Western Conference Finals, man. That's my input on it.
Now, I like the Lakers, but did you watch them last night? They look terrible.
Yeah, they looked okay, but you know what happened? Dwight Howard, man. I think he was in another planet last night. He just didn't want I honestly didn't even know he was in the game in the second half. You know, he wasn't there.
And that's what I want to mention about Dwight Howard. Did you see his quote? I don't know if he said this yesterday or today. He said playing in Orlando, he was playing with below-average players. I want to say, I don't know if that's the exact quote, and that he had to put a smile on his face every day to be happy to be on the Magic, playing up with below-average players. Who says that? This guy's a cocky SOB, and I'm starting to hate him.
Honestly, he's not the best center in the league.
No,
no. So he is he's a good defensive player, though. I mean, you're looking at a defensive player of the year, like 2 times, I believe, or whatever, 3-time defensive player. The guy can block, It's just a matter of if he can get in the groove and want to play. And, I mean, Kobe Bryant's going to be the Black Mamba,
Oh, yeah.
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe's have to carry this team.
We're talking about the Black Mamba.
And I'll say one thing. If they do sneak into that 8 seed, and regardless they've had a down year, no team is – I mean, Kobe's going to strike that fear in that team. I don't care if they're playing the Spurs, the Thunder, whoever it is, the Clippers in the playoffs. You got the Kobe factor, and that's intimidating.
I completely agree with you. I just hope they make that 8 seed. I'm watching all the games tonight. I'm going to watch Utah lose and watch Houston lose. We're going to get Kobe Bryant winning tonight, and it's going to be game on.
Well, there you
go.
Be a
whole new season once the playoffs hit. But, yeah, the Blackhawks, man, I know you're a diehard Chicago fan. You got to get that Bears banner off.
Yeah, it's looking good.
As well. You got to put up a nice Tampa Bay Bucks or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The Blackhawks are a good team, man. They're gonna finish strong, and they're probably gonna make the Stanley Cup Finals. But it's a shortened season, so we'll see.
We'll have to see. Yeah, time will tell. You never know in the playoffs. Hockey playoffs, you could be a 1 seed and lose to an 8. We saw that happen in Vancouver. Yep. It's different than NBA.
I've watched it the past 3 years. I think it's happened.
Right. So you never know in the NHL. Well, time will tell, and we want to thank you for coming on.
Well, I'm going out to have a nice brewski. We'll keep in touch, man.
Yeah, have fun. Indian Rocks, man, great place. Have a fun time.
Indian Rocks Beach, man.
There you go.
Life. I'm just going to watch the Heat, have a couple beers, man. You have a good night, CJ.
There you go. Yeah, Guido from Indian Rocks. Thank you for coming on.
Barducci out.
Take it easy, brother. So we were talking about with Flacco, and I mean, come on, $52 million guaranteed, and I agree with him. There's no way he's worth that much money. I also want to talk about Von Miller came out and guaranteed that the Broncos will win the Super Bowl. What is he smoking? I mean, come on. Number one, we're in March. You have free agency that's going to be happening in about a week. You have the draft. And I know he came out, his cousin was in a very severe car accident, Von Miller, and he recovered, and he thought, the guy's full of emotions right now, but come on. Predicting, guaranteeing a Super Bowl. We don't know what team is going to look like. And, I mean, teams are going to look different in the next 2 months. You're going to have drafts. Is going to make teams look different. The free agency. So to guarantee your team's going to win a Super Bowl, I mean, Broncos were a great team this season. Well, that's ballsy. And I don't know. If I don't agree with Von Miller, I think he's going to eat those words. And he forgets there's a team in that conference called the New England Patriots. And there's another team in that conference, the Baltimore Ravens. And I think the saying goes, to beat the champ, you got to beat a champ, you got to beat the champ. Well, first beat the Ravens, which you didn't in the playoffs. So before you can make those bold statements. I also want to talk NBA about Mike Woodson. And did he leave Carmelo Anthony in too long? On Monday night, Carmelo hurt his knee. He was playing with a hurt knee. He ended up tripping, hurting his knee more. Now Mike Woodson's taking blame. And I don't blame Woodson. Okay, they were down 22 points. They ended up coming back. I mean, I know he's playing hurt, Carmelo, but, I mean, this is a big, big game. I mean, you're getting towards the later part of the season. The Knicks are in the middle of they're getting a higher seed. And you need your best player on the floor. If he can play, I mean, Michael Jordan can go out there with 102 fever. And score 50-something points. And, I mean, Carmelo can play with a hurt knee. I mean, it wasn't hurt. He was playing. He wasn't limping. I know he aggravated it, but come on. I don't think Mike Woodson should take blame for this. And then if he took him out and didn't play him out, he didn't play him in that game, he'd get blamed for that. So it's like, double-edged sword. And that's how I feel about that topic. And I also want to get into real quick about Dennis Rodman visiting North Korea. What do you people take of that? Dennis Rodman for diplomacy. That's the funniest thing I ever heard. I'm trying to keep a straight face by saying this. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, this is when this is what the world's coming to. Dennis Rodman is going to talk. He's trying to talk about diplomacy, saying that Obama should reach out to Kim in North Korea, Kim Jong, whatever, Kim Jong Un. I can't pronounce his last name, but the leader of North Korea, that Obama should reach out because they both like basketball. Is that the most outlandish of statements you've ever heard? The White House is critical of Rodman and they're ripping him apart. This guy, I mean, this is just a disgrace for America saying that Kim's a good guy. I mean, come on, Dennis. I mean, Dennis is a great basketball player, but he's not no diplomat. So I totally disagree with that. So that's my thumbs down of the day. And I also want to talk about Rory McIlroy leaving the Honda Classic withdrawing in the second round because he claims because of a wisdom tooth. Dude, you play golf. You're not going out there freaking running through 300-pound linemen as a running back or, playing hockey, getting smashed in the board. You're playing golf with a hurt wisdom tooth and you're going to withdraw? Come on, dude. Come on, man. I mean, that is crock of crap. I mean, dude. I mean, the word I'm thinking begins with P and ends in Y. I mean, I'm not going to say it in the air, but Jesus. I mean, come on, Rory. That was just bad. I mean, you're a role model. I mean, kids look up to you and you're going to withdraw because of that. I mean, you're one of the top golfers, you and Tiger right now at the top of the game. We know he's had a rough start to the season. He didn't make the cut in the match championship, but come on. I mean, Rory, man up. I mean, come on. So I want to talk, and I also want to talk about, I just want to mention about Gonzaga being number one. We're going to get Vince on in a bit to talk about Gonzaga. That's going to be one of my topics. And who'd ever think Gonzaga would be number one in the country? And are they beneficial of a weak conference? I mean, they are in the West Conference. So they do play, Cream Puffs. They do play Portland. They do play Pepperdine and all these other teams, as opposed to being in the SEC or ACC or Big Ten. So, I mean, they are beneficiaries of a weak conference schedule. But this team is 29-2. They have they have a great coach. They have star players. They're defensively, I believe they're like 8th overall in efficiency, allowing points. Let me see. There was a stat I had right here. Offensively, they're ranked 3rd in offensive efficiency. That's why I mentioned 120 points a game. So this team can score. I wouldn't count out Gonzaga come tournament time. I don't know if they're going to win the national championship, but boy, they're going to be a dangerous team. 2 more topics I want to get into. Robinson Cano's dad says Cano will spend the rest of his career with the Yankees. What is it with dads coming out making statements for their sons? We saw Dwight Howard come out, his dad coming out to protect his son with Mike D'Antoni about, sticking up for his son. Now we're seeing Robinson Cano's dad. In years past, we've seen Rex Grossman's dad come out against Spurrier and the Gators. Gators getting mad about his benching. Parents, I mean, come on. Your son's a professional athlete. He's making a lot of money. They don't need you to come and defend their battles. So I think parents should back off. If Robinson Cano is going to stay with the Yankees, he'll make it known. You don't need his dad to come forward. And speaking of the Yankees, they're in some trouble. Teixeira, he's out 8 to 10 weeks, I found out today. And now Granderson's out. So the Yankees are in a heap of trouble. They really are in the early going, especially in a hard American League East. One more topic I want to get into real quick before we get Vince on the phone. I don't know if you saw it. Dusty Baker and Kirk Gibson's feud over the DH. What happened was during a spring training game, I believe on Monday, Dusty Baker wanted to play the DH in a National League game, spring training game. What's the home team's decision, which is Kirk Gibson's, to make that decision if they can allow the DH to play because it's spring training. Gibson said no. They had words. So this is my question. Should the DH be allowed in the National League? And I don't think so. I mean, some people say yes because it prolongs the career of some hitters. We saw Edgar Martinez on the Mariners, able to DH for so many years. He was too old to play the field. And then we see David Ortiz now with the Red Sox. So it does prolong the career of some hitters. But at the same time, I'm an what do you want to say? Historic type person with the National League. I think National League Baseball, it makes the managers actually game plan when you have the pitcher's batting spot. You have to have a pinch hitter ready. You have to know when to pinch it for the pitcher if he's pitching a good game. So strategy-wise, it makes it harder on the managers. The DH is easy. I can put up a guy, some jacked up dude to go out there and hit 40 home runs. So I don't like the DH. The whole feud, Dusty Baker's a jackass. He managed the Cubs. No one ever likes the guy. The guy is just likes trouble, and I think Kirk Gibson would have laid his ass out. So a good thing they didn't get into it because Kirk Gibson's a beast. This guy that played football in, I believe, in high school, college. Not a small guy. Played for the Tigers, so I think Kirk Gibson would have won that fight. So those are the topics of the day. Now we're going to get Vince Ferrara on the phone from Knoxville, Tennessee. Talk some March Madness, college basketball. Can't wait. This is a great time to be a college basketball fan. March Madness, all the great games, the Cinderellas, the upsets, the cutting of the nets for the champion. I'm running out of things to say.
Yeah.
Hello, Vince. It's CJ from Talking Sports with CJ.
Hey, CJ, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on? My paisan.
Yeah.
How you been?
You all right?
No, I'm doing great.
I'm good.
How's things in Knoxville?
Yeah, well, just getting out of the gym personally, but as far as sports-wise, I mean, spring practice is starting for the football team coming up this weekend, and we've got basketball, so there's plenty going on.
Are you missing Tampa at all? I mean, you're a Tampa resident originally.
Yeah, the last time I got to Tampa was over the Christmas holiday, CJ, and I get down there 2-3 times a year. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I mean, it's been cold. We had a cold front come in, and a cold front in Tampa is 55 degrees, 60 degrees. But for the most part, it's been good.
Frigid, I know. No, here we've had snow all day today.
Oh,
so,
geez.
Yeah, it's warm there compared to that.
Now, March Madness is coming up. It's a good time to be a college basketball fan. That's why I'm getting you on early March. We're getting towards, I believe, conference tournaments next week. And then the following week is a tournament. So it's a great time to be with the upsets, the Cinderellas, like I said. It's going to be a great tournament. I think this is the most open tournament in a long time. There's so much parity this season in college basketball.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, CJ. You're right on that. And with the number ones falling on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
In the number one teams in the polls falling on a regular basis throughout the year, and some of them continuing to lose. We really have no idea of there aren't any sure things of who the elite teams are. So it's going to be fun, but it's to fill out our brackets, but it's probably also going to be so stressful for a lot of us, not wondering who to put in there in the Final Four and the championship game because it is so wide open. And the conference tournaments are always fun too because you start seeing teams that are on the bubble. You start to see their hopes dwindle at each and every conference tournament. Upset happens in those one bid league actually the multiple bid leagues. It's the team that's shooting for the NCAA tournament. If they don't win their tournament, then that makes those one bid leagues a two bid league, and it takes someone off the bubble line. So it's really interesting. And the team that I cover here regularly in Tennessee is right there on the bubble.
Right.
Joey Brackett's Joe Lunardi has Tennessee going into tonight's action as the last team in, and that's certainly fluid. So there are a bunch of SEC teams right there on the cusp. I think there's 4 of them. So the SEC could go anywhere from 2 to 16.
Wow. Well, Vince, you there? I thought we lost you for a minute. Yeah, I can hear you now. I thought we lost you. And I want to say, before we get into SEC talk and the rest of college basketball, I want to say, whoever predicts the tournament this year, you better go buy a Powerball ticket if you predict this tournament, because I can't see anybody predicting every win of this tournament.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, this is one of those deals. You know how it is. You get someone in the office that doesn't pay any attention to basketball, and get them to fill out a bracket based on team colors and logos and team states that they visited and all that kind of stuff. Those are the people that are going to win the bracket this year.
Last year when Duke lost to Lehigh, my brackets were thrown away the second night. I threw them in a garbage can that Friday night. They were in the garbage that night because that's why brackets got killed on the Missouri and Duke losing. I believe it was in the same night. It was that Friday night. I'll never forget it. So
it's amazing. You can feel so good about it. Maybe the first weekend, the first day or two, and then in one day, you're balling that bad up and shooting hoops in the Final 13, and you're done with those things.
I agree. Well, I'm going to start talking with the Tennessee Volunteers, and I watched them. I believe it was last week. They beat the Gators at home. That was an impressive victory. It looked good on their resume to get in the tournament. I know they're on the bubble. I was watching an ESPN special last weekend, and they are a bubble team. And you said tonight that they have them last team in. Do you think Tennessee? What's it going to take in the SEC tournament for Tennessee to get in? How many wins? And do you see them getting a tournament and being a dangerous team?
Well, it's a great question, and we spent most of our show today trying to figure that out and thinking about it and breaking down all the possible scenarios because it is wide open with Tennessee. And the crazy thing is that if Tennessee wins its last 2 games, and they have Auburn tonight at 9 o'clock, and then they've got Missouri at home to close out the regular season, game. And Missouri is solidly in the tournament. I think their RPI is 28, so that can really help Tennessee's resume and RPI. But if they get those 2 wins, then they will either be a 4, 5, or 6 seed in the SEC tournament. And with the 14 teams in the SEC this year, with a basketball tournament, the way it's going to work is your bottom 4 are going to, in essence, play play-in games on the first day.
Right.
Then 8 other teams will play 4 games as single buys, and then the top 4 get double buys. But how that could, in a strange way, hurt Tennessee if it gets to the 4 seed in the conference tournament. That means 2 things. 1, they won't get a game until the quarterfinals. 2, they'd be facing the Florida Gators in the quarterfinals.
That's a big
and
game,
then you could have the possibility of Tennessee going one and done in the SEC tournament. Well, you need wins to help you in that, in your case and for your resume. So that it might be better to be a 5 where you maybe get to play like an Ole Miss or an Alabama to avenge earlier losses. You get that extra win, and then maybe you get the Florida Gators after that. At least maybe the tournament committee might look at you a little bit different by picking up an extra win. So in a weird way, I think Tennessee might want to stay away from that double bye. But there's so many teams bunched up there in a group. Kentucky's in second place at 11-5 right now, and they can certainly fall back if they slip up. So it is wide open. There's so many different scenarios. So to answer your question, long story short, I think Tennessee's probably still going to need one more win in the SEC tournament to really solidify things. But as you know, that line can move depending on what happens with other conference tournaments around the country.
Now I want to get on the Florida Gators. I believe they've been ranked as high as number 3 this season, I want to say. They have a great core of players. You got Wilbekin, you have Patrick Young, Kenny Boynton, great coach in Billy Donovan. How would you compare this Florida team? Is this the best Florida team you've seen since the 06, 07 teams with Noah, Horford? And is this team a legitimate threat for the national championship?
Well, first, the answer to your first question, yes, they are the best. Now, I don't think they're on that level, but they might not need to be. Are they a national championship contender? I think so, but it's not because they are this dominant force. It's because it is wide open and everybody has flaws. So to me, when you have a coach like Billy Donovan, when you have an experienced roster and you have very good guard play and you can play defense, those are 4 very good characteristics that typically work in the tournament. I think Florida has the ability to go very deep. The only thing, my one concern for them, and I've seen them firsthand, I saw them at Tennessee just last week, as you mentioned earlier, and they have players that are not consistent. Patrick Young has Dwight Howard's body, but he doesn't play like him. He plays like a guy in the end of the bench in the NBA as opposed to Dwight Howard. And actually, Dwight Howard sometimes plays like a guy at the end of the bench in the NBA.
I agree with that.
With the Lakers. But that's my concern. When he is dialed in, they have that inside-outside, and they're a strong force. But they don't always play that way. And when you hear Billy Donovan criticize his team, that's a concern to me because Billy Donovan is one of my favorite coaches in sports.
Oh, yeah.
Much less in college basketball. He really is truthful about his team, and he is not shy to criticize his team. Not totally throw them under the bus, but mention their flaws, which are real. So he realizes they have some issues, and to me, it's going to depend on their matchups, and it's going to depend on how focused they are in the tournament. They're a candidate for an early exit, but they're also a candidate to win it all. I think they're just that inconsistent.
Like most teams this season.
Yeah, exactly.
I also want to talk about the Kentucky Wildcats, always one of the more hated teams in the SEC, maybe because of John Calipari, great coach. I mean, but I can see where he gets that vibe. People get that vibe from him. But I want to talk about Kentucky, what they've dealt with. They've dealt with adversity all year. They lost Noel for the season during that Florida game, tore his, I believe, his ACL. And then we saw the whole championship team basically dismantle with Anthony Davis. But 20-9, they're right there in the thick of things. How would you describe Calipari's performance this season?
Well, to me, he's done another terrific job. Now, it's a totally different team. He's taken a different approach. When they lost I'll go back to even before that, when they were having some early season struggles. They had the loss at home to Texas A&M in conference. They lost to Baylor early in the year on their home floor. They never do that under Calipari. And so he treated that as a crisis back then. So then, as the year went on, they started getting their groove, and then they lose Noel. And then I thought getting hammered at Tennessee, I got to see them firsthand there too. I think that might have been the best thing that could have happened to them, because it was a little bit of a reality check for their guys, and it showed them you cannot play the same. You cannot just stay the same. You have got to incredibly improve your effort and your focus and what you do. So I think they've played better since then. Do I think they're anywhere close to as good as the way they were starting to become? under Noel? No. But I still think they're a team that can get into the tournament. I still think they're a team that can win a couple games in the tournament because of who leads them in Calipari. And they have some ability, some athleticism. But I tell you, CJ, guys, when I look at those projections, the Chad Ford from ESPN, he's got his NBA draft projections. It just shows you how down the overall talent in college basketball is right now and how young it is. Because I see all those Kentucky guys outside of Nerlens Noel, and I'm like, wow, these guys have this physical skills, but they don't play that way all the time. And it's a down year. Next year, they might have the number one player in the country in recruiting at 5 different positions in their next recruiting class. Yeah, so everyone better take their wins against Kentucky while they can get them.
Yep, kick them when they're down.
It's going to be another group that can win it all as freshmen next year, I think.
I agree. And, Calipari, he does recruit. Even when he was at Memphis, when he was even at UMass, what he did with the Massachusetts Minutemen program with Marcus Camby and Edgar Padilla. So, what he's done with these teams, Memphis and now Kentucky, I don't know if he does it the right way all the time, but he does know how to recruit, and he's always, I think he's a great coach. Not a great NBA coach. We've seen that when he coached the Nets, but great college coach.
Well, he's in a lot of ways, he has similarities to Nick Saban in that everyone would constantly talk about, he's going to go to the NFL, he's going to go to the NFL. When you are that good at recruiting and you enjoy it, Calipari enjoys it, Nick Saban loves it.
Yep.
And then you enjoy it so much, and you're better than everyone else at it, and then you can continue to work at stockpiling championships. Why go to a level where you can't, you don't have a say in your roster? You can't stack it up. You can't have those advantages of things that you do great. The NFL, you have so many restrictions. And so, just like with Nick Saban, I've always thought that he's not going back to the NFL. He'll go to his lake when he's done winning championships and stockpiling those in Tuscaloosa. He wants to be the greatest of all time at coaching college football and passing Bear Bryant to national championships, and that's his drive. And Calipari wants to continue to add national championships. It's tougher this year for sure, but I think that's his motivation right now is continue to win, and he enjoys challenges too.
We're on the phone with Vince Ferrara tonight. I want to get into Gonzaga. We were talking about them earlier. They're number one in the country. I would have never guessed this back in December, January. But, some people saying they're benefiting. Some critics are saying they're benefiting from a weak conference schedule. They do play Portland, Pepperdine. But they are 29-2. And, they're averaging, 100, I believe 120 points a game or something like that. Do you think this team is a dangerous team? And do you see them being a Final Four team?
Well, to me, they are in the conversation for the Final Four for sure. But you got to look at, for me, a lot of the decisions on whether I will put them in the Final Four. This year's a different year. In years past, you kind of, in your mind late in the year, you say, all right, this team I'm putting in the Final Four. I don't care how the bracket looks. This team, and then I'll have one open based on how the bracket looks. I think with everybody, it depends on how the bracket looks for a lot of the teams. So it's a wait and see from that standpoint with Gonzaga. But I love Kelly Olynyk. I like their guards. I think they have a lot of the ingredients to be successful. They've played some really good teams and won against good competition. They just play in a conference where you're not playing as good a competition on a regular basis. But the WCC is pretty good. It's underrated in terms of what it does. In terms of the Mountain West Conference, people would say, San Diego State, New Mexico, they don't play anybody. No, actually, there are some of those conferences are rated better than some of the power conferences, the traditional conferences. So that's a little bit more of perception. I think they are legit. Would I, right now, if you asked me to pick one national champion, they wouldn't be the team I would pick. But depending on how the bracket goes, I would not hesitate to put them in the Final Four because they have coaching, they've got inside, outside, and they're very experienced. So I do like them a lot.
And people rip the conference, and who knows about the conference? The game started like midnight. By the time they're over, in the East Coast, on a work night, who wants to stay up till 2:30 3 in the morning watching West Coast basketball? So a lot of people don't get to see Gonzaga on the East Coast because they're on so late.
Well, they need to bust out the DVR.
That's true.
a couple 2-3 steps, you can watch them whenever it's a slow night in basketball another day, you know?
I want to talk about Indiana. They're back on top again. I always say college basketball is better when Indiana's good. It's kind of like when NBA, when the Knicks are good. I believe the same thing with Indiana. With the job Tom Crean has done, he inherited a team that was a mess from Calvin Sampson with violations. They have Cody Zeller, one of the best players in the country. Describe the job. Did you think Tom Crean was going to have Indiana this at the top this quick when he took over?
I thought Tom Crean was a great coach. I thought he would have success there. We forget. I think this is Crean's 4th or 5th year. I want to say 4th or 5th, something like that, because his first few years, not only were they a mess, as you mentioned, that he inherited when he inherited them, but they were really bad his first couple years while he was transforming that roster, turning them over and getting recruiting classes and getting some guys to stay. So it's actually, a credit to Indiana that they were patient with Crean, and they saw that this could pay off, and it has exploded from last year to this year. So I didn't think they'd have this kind of jump, but I thought he would eventually have success. And when they're struggling early, you wondered whether they would give him enough time. And, they're another team that has the blend of youth, of experience that you like, and another great coach. I know they've lost a couple games recently, including last night to Ohio State on their home floor. But if you ask me right now who would be one team that I might trust the most, and it's not a full trust, but it's trust the most compared to all the other flawed candidates, I would probably pick Indiana. I still think they have the most difference-making players in Oladipo and Zeller and some other very good players. That would be the team I would go with, and is Indiana right now.
Well, that would be your championship team if you were to say right now at the moment.
Yeah, it would be.
Well,
yep.
Well, it would be a college basketball conversation without Duke. Duke, every year it always seems like they're going to be the 1-2 seed in the tournament. And other than the 2010 team that won the championship, which I was surprised going in, they happened to be in a weaker bracket. They won that championship. But in years past, we saw them lose to Lehigh last season. One year they lost to, I want to say, Xavier in the second round. One year Villanova blew them out. I want to say it was 2008. So, other than 2010, they've had a lot of early exits, including last season. Do you see that happening to Duke again this season, or are the Dukies going to make a run this season?
I actually think that they are a candidate for an early bounce.
Right.
I would put Duke in there. I would put Syracuse in there, too. And I know Duke had that incredible game from Ryan Kelly, the first game he came back in the win over Miami.
Yeah, that was big.
Was an outstanding win. I think some of that was adrenaline. It was the moment, him coming back. And plus, it's their home floor. I don't fully trust Duke because of the guard play, the inconsistency there, and you don't always see big performances from Mason Plumlee. And then is Ryan Kelly going to play that way all the time? My guess is he's not going to drop 36 or 37, whatever it was. And that's what it took for them to beat Miami. So the guard play and just when their play, the way it dropped off without Kelly so much, they're too inconsistent to me in the backcourt that I think they are a candidate for an early exit again, despite having another great coach, and it's happened to them before. So I think they tighten up a little bit in those situations.
And you live by the three, you die by the three. I've seen that with past Duke teams, and when they play a team that's good defensively, last week against Virginia, a perfect example, a very good defensive team, and the first half they were shut down.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's a great point. And that's they shoot the three too much, and part of that was they were doing it without Kelly, and Kelly is a post that can step out and stretch the defense and shoot the three. But I think once you start getting some defensive, some other coaches game planning that, I think they'll have an answer, and he's not going to shoot that well in the future either. So I agree with you. Those type of teams, the ones that rely on one thing too much, those are the ones that I try to stay away from in my brackets. One-dimensional types of teams that are all offense, no defense, teams that have difficulty scoring but can D you up. teams that have inside play but have bad shooting percentages, those are the teams that to me, I would stay away from if all possible in terms of picking teams to go deep in the tournament.
Well, Vince, we want to thank you for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure. I like having you on. You always have good insight, and we'll see what happens this tournament.
Yeah, it should be fun, and anytime if you guys want to talk spring football, that's blowing up big. Teams are starting to open up spring practices. Johnny Football did it at A&M Saturday, South Carolina yesterday, Georgia on Saturday, and then Tennessee opens up on Saturday, this coming Saturday, and the rest over the next week or two. So holler at me anytime, guys.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you, Vince. Have a great night.
All right, you do the same. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you. Well, that's Vince Ferrara. Great tournament talk. I just want to say real quick before I go, the Blackhawks 0-0 in the first period. Does the streak continue? We will see tonight. I want to thank Kurt Smith for coming on the show, and I want to thank Vince Ferrara for coming on. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great night. Talking Sports with CJ. It's Talking Sports with CJ and Fonz on SportsSlamRadio.com. It's sports hardcore and fully uncensored.